Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. Thank you so very much for joining me for Smash Our Stash for January. This is a collaboration put on by Beth of Bourbon Creek Crafts. The category for this month was scraps. Everything that you see here, except I think the bases of some of these joy, I think those were already cut. I die cut, I punched, I stitched, sewed, layered. It was all for this collab for this month, and I had a great time. I might put together a how this stuff came to be video. I'm not going to say process, but might talk you through some of it. But let me tell you the basic ideas. I looked at my scraps, which I would have told you before I made this, that I keep my scraps very well sorted. That was not true, and I kept finding them all over. Most of my patterned scraps were maybe my least favorite papers out of the collection, so that can sometimes be a challenge. I just went through and said, okay, this die or punch or concept fits it. And I made tons of stuff. I made a bunch of get wells because that die fit the size of the paper strip. These little tiny happy birthdays, those are with ones that are just a hair wider than half an inch. So I really look and say, okay, what can I make with this? But also in making these, I was thinking about what I would use. I need right now in my stash a bunch of thank yous, which is unusual for me because I love to make them, some get wells, and I always have a shortage of happy birthday. So in my box here, I have happy birthdays in a larger font that didn't work for all of them. Then this was my itty bitty paper strips. Joy, some more happy birthday, thanks. I used that for the shorter strips of paper. Get well, a tiny little hello. I die cut a bunch of butterflies because I have a butterfly journal on my radar. Thanks and hello. Balloons, not because I thought I needed balloons, but because there were tiny scraps. And then I thought, well, I can use them on birthday cards. And then I want to show you these. I cut these purely because they fit on the scrap of paper. They were very, very narrow strips of paper. Any embellishment like that, you can just choose a die that fits for the paper scrap. Now, if you don't have dies, maybe you have punches. I have these butterflies right here are actually from punches. If you don't have dies or punches, there are still some more options, so let me show you those. These, again, this is a die, but I had to have a pretty big scrap of paper. These are snowman accessories, and sometimes the patterned papers that you don't really want to create with, I like this one fine, but I'm not a real geometric fan. They are great if you think of a different season or a different type of project. Just maybe in the project you were working on at the time, you didn't love them. So I cut a couple of these and I'll put them away with this die. So I have them for next year. And I had planned to do more of those. I just got really sidetracked on cutting sentiments. I made tons of clusters. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm a junk journaler too. So I have it is probably trash, okay? So I made all different styles. And that's the other thing that I want you to see is if you have a really clean style, I've got some stuff to show you. If you like layers of junk and trash, then I have these. Now keep in mind, I stamped some of these images. What I did to stamp them was I got out one sheet of scratch paper that was sitting around here. I think it was like half of a piece of paper, and stamped a whole bunch of tiny images on it and then tore them out. And so I made a whole bunch like this where they're layered up and they would maybe work on a card. They'd be great for an embellishment in a junk journal page. And the accessories and items on them were chosen sheerly because they were in the scrap and junk bin. I did not go looking for embellishments except for the few stamps. And the reason I did that was I wanted small stamps that would work nice in the middle of the clusters. So all of those, and then I have some back here where I sewed die cuts into them. And I also have some where I left it fairly blank and manageable for whatever project I put it on. I can still layer on top of it. Then I wanted to make some that were more square. Maybe you don't tear and you're into very clean lines. So what I did was I glued onto, same idea, made a whole bunch of them, but I cut them out in squares. This might be better for somebody who has hand trouble. You can just use scissors to get them out. I couldn't really use my paper cutter because the items that were in rows, I'm using the word row pretty loosely. And if you've seen me do this before, they aren't the same size, right? You can't use your paper cutter, but you can use scissors. So I made a bunch of those, fabric scraps, some little tab, a bit of an old map. Yeah, it's a bin of trash. But look how cute they are. Look at that one. That is great color. It's got some red, white, and blue leftover plaid paper, an old map, some really old paper from an old scrapbook, and a bit of patterned vellum, all on top of light blue copy paper. Then here's another one. I did this one on some kind of paper that was sitting around, and it does not tear well. I learned that afterwards, which is good because I had planned to cut these. And these, again, I did these more with scissors and rectangles in mind. This was an item that I had fussy cut and it was sitting around, but I never used it in my fall cards. And then this one, I just grabbed little bits of things. Look at these. They are those annoying narrow strips, maybe 1/4 of an inch, but look at how cute this would be. I could finish this out with something else. So I could put a Get Well on top of it, maybe something a little smaller, and put it across the front of a card. You could take a little tiny hello and put it right there, then you wouldn't cover up so much of it, and you could use it for the front of a card, or you could put it as a pocket or a tuck spot on a journal page. I could layer more of them, and one of them was a really nice blue mirror paper that I didn't want to get away. Just really playing with your scraps, and I had a great time, an absolutely wonderful time, just layering things up and using them. And it actually helped me when they were small, like the trash. This is my sort of trash bin, right? And that's where a whole bunch of this stuff came from. It's not scrapbook paper. It's not necessarily cardstock. It's napkins and patterns and part of an envelope and some leftover fabric and something I cut off a mixed media project and an upholstery sample. It is random stuff and it is so fun. I have a couple more things I want to show you and I'm running long, so let's keep moving. Okay, I wanted to show you this because if you don't have a sewing machine or you don't have dies, you could make something like this. This is the same concept. I just kept it super simple on supplies. I have stamped on it, used 3 patterned papers. I would probably tear the edge too, just for fun, but I left it so you could see 2 different ways. You know, it's tearing and a clean cut. If you have scraps, you can make stuff. There are ideas all day long. You may have seen me do this before. I have 2 where I just made the scrap piece, and then this third one I actually made it into a card. This was paper scraps that were sitting around, and then these are items that I die cut from scraps during all this work, and then I laid it on top of a piece of really pretty like blue shimmer paper that also was a scrap. It has a big circle cut out of the middle of it. I just wanted to show you how a card can come together just using scraps. Even if someone gives you the most random, hey, I don't want this anymore, you can use it. And these can head in the same direction, and you can cover up that hole with a flower, a star. Then this was one large item, and I collaged paper scraps onto it and then sliced it up. These could either be journaling cards, or I could cut the corners off, punch a hole, and make tags. They are ready to layer more onto. This one I could even stamp right here. And this one, if I used black, I think I could stamp there too. So you can make all sorts of journaling cards. And I don't know if you could tell, but this paper on the back is like some kind of bad mauve. The one last thing I want to show you, and I had a great time making this too. This is a collage with scraps. I had that big scrap bin and I dug in. This piece of paper back here was some sort of quilting pattern. Then eyebrows are a 1/4 inch strip of paper. The eyes themselves were some sort of mixed media reject that was in that box. The hair is tissue paper that has been dyed, and then part of a tissue that had some brighter blue. And the eyes, it was not a permanent ink. It has some kind of water-based ink. So I tried to put white on the eyes, but I lost interest in how much effort it was taking. The nose is some sort of magazine page. It's slick. This obviously was a patriotic scrapbook paper, and I just tore the shapes a little bit. The eyes were almost eye-shaped, and so that's kind of how they ended up being the eyes. The page was not clean, so it had this paint and a little bit of this paint, and then I came in with oil pastels around the edge and then just drew a line with my marker. Just another way to show you, if you have scraps, you can find inspiration in them. You could sit around and do this project with kids, and it would probably look a lot like mine, but I want you to know I had fun doing this, and then I did mixed media. Dig in, use your scraps, have a great time. Scrap clusters are a really great way to tidy up, so keep that in mind. Be sure to check out the other collaborators. This is a wonderful collab. We have fun categories all year long. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.